Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to Season 5 and episode number 696 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Monday, July 21st, 2025, and it looks like it's going to be a lovely day here at the Beaver Lodge. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, he, Mr. Beaver A, and unfortunately, not with me as usual is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. If you've been following the show, you know that Mr. Grizzly finally has a new gig, and today is his first day. Of course, there's a couple of a little bit of paperwork and has to make sure he has his pass and all that kind of stuff. So it seems that from what I can understand, that normally he'll be joining us on the shows up until about 7:30 in the morning. And after that, I'll be on my own. But for this morning, just, to make sure that paperwork and all that stuff is handled, he had to be in just a little earlier. So it will be just you and me today. And I am very happy that you are here. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Got a packed show for you today. And I guess since Mr. Grizzly is not here, Kids and Cubs, how is your mental health today? Mine is doing fairly well, I have to say. I got some good sleep last night, which is good because sleep has been coming at a bit of a premium over the past little bit. I love my beaver sweetie very much, but he does tend to snore. So it does wake me up every now and then a little earlier than I would like, and given that I already get early starts. But I've discovered uh, uh, the benefits of an afternoon nap because sometime around 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I usually start hammering nails with my forehead. So I just take a little lie down when I have that opportunity. Of course, it's not always available. And then I'm able to get back with my regularly scheduled day after that. But yes, got good rest, feeling chipper, in a good mood. And I actually wasn't scrambling today in order to be able to get ready for the show. I had a good productive weekend where I had a lot of stuff planned in advance. And so it was a very easy morning for me today in preparation for the show. So it's always better for me when I'm able to come to the show a little more calmly than when I'm still trying to put together an outline, the final pieces of an outline a couple of minutes before we start, which does happen behind the scenes here enough. But today, smooth sailing. Since we have you here, Kits and Cubs, let's take a look and see who's here. We have Kit Elaine and Kit Argosi Acres. Good morning to both of you. We have Kit Sharon. Hello, lovely person. How are you? A recent addition to the DAMFAM and a very good contributor to the chat as I've been following it. So thank you so much for being very participatory and contributing to the betterment of the DAMFAM. We have Kit Moan here, which means family is also here. So hello to the whole family. Hello, Miss. Hello, Mateo, Jazzy, Rain, and all the cats and all the good stuff over there going on. Hope that everybody is doing very well. Kit Saucy is with us. Hello, Mama. I hope you and the baby and all babies, really, but particularly the more recent one, of course, the newest arrival, is doing very well, and hope that your recovery is going well as well. Again, be kind to and gentle with yourself. I know that you're a go-getter, but remember, slow and steady is fast. Kit Toronto Dan with us. Hello, my friend. Lovely to see you this morning. Thank you for joining us. Hope everything's going well. I know that you have some good stuff happening to you as well. So that's it's always nice to get good news. Here we go. We have Mr. Grizzly popping in on the chat there to say good morning. First meeting about to begin. No Grizzly on the show today. Duty calls. Of course, Mr. Grizzly, very, very dutiful. No doubt about that. I've learned that about him over the years that we've worked together. And there's a reason why when he's in a certain workplace that it doesn't take long before people see his value and really come to like him and enjoy him. He's a good egg. What can I say? And he does good work. He's really good at what he does. Kit Kat W. There we go. Wishing Mr. Grizzly a good first day and good morning to you. Kit playing with 3Ds with us. Hello. Also sending good vibes to Mr. Grizzly on his first day. That's so wonderful. And have I gotten through everyone? Oh, no. Breens. Hello. The Breens. Both of you. Good morning. So nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. That's lovely. And do we have anybody else? Just going through the list really quickly. Ooh, I'm getting some flattery. Nice. Thank you. Flattery will get you almost everywhere. Apparently, according to Kit Sharon, I'm looking good. We have Kit PNC Bio. Hello. Nice to see you. So glad. I always love seeing Kit PNC Bio's comments in the chat. Always add some substance. And of course, stalwart Kit Uncover. Good morning. Thank you for all that you do to help us, Kit Uncover. And we are so glad that you're here bringing us some breaking news in the chat from all around the world. So there you go, Kits and Cubs. All right. So, and of course, yes, right here already, Kit Uncover premieres to meet with Indigenous groups on first day of 3-day Ontario gathering. Indeed, and we will get into that a little bit over the course of the show because there's lots of stuff going on here, Kits and Cubs. All right, so well, hey, let's start with that because that is the sort of big thing this week. It seems that what we mentioned, I think was at the beginning of last week or whatnot, or the week at around the end of the week before, that there was a lot of meetings for the prime minister coming up, and he's had the meeting with his cabinet. He's had that first 2-day summit, which he was there for the second day, but the full day, which was appreciated by the community with First Nations communities. Again, not the best summit, but far from a total failure, but not a resounding success either. So, lots of mixed reports from that. A lot of people were extremely disappointed, and some people walked out, and there were some people who are more cautiously optimistic. So, the First Nations communities are not a monolith, so you got a full range there. But there will be, um, there should be some things to tend to post that meeting because it wasn't done as well as it could be. And the third of those 3 meetings is the one with the first ministers that will be taking place in the Muskokas. Now, that's actually a 3-day meeting in total, as Kit Uncover has indicated. But the first day, the second day of the meetings, is the one at which the prime minister will be attending. Uh, so yes, the first day of the meeting, um, with the premiers. Sorry, the first day of the meeting is going to be within uh, among the premiers, and it seems that their priority here, indeed, was to meet with members of First Nations communities because uh, in Ontario there's Bill 5, and I believe in British Columbia there's bills 14 and 15, if I remember correctly. And those are creating some controversy. And as you know, there was also the letter sent by the ministers of the environment from the provinces of Ontario, Todd McCarthy, and province of Alberta, Rebecca Schultz, in which they seem to very heavily suggest that there was no particular pressing need to do absolutely anything to preserve or to ensure that there was drinking water on reserve and for First Nations, or that they have that their waterways be protected in any way, shape, or form, which did raise some ire as well. So yeah, that didn't go over very well with the community in a lot of ways, and yeah, so there was some fallout or some aftermath reporting from that summit, and according to I think it's APTN who reported on this, if I am not mistaken. Um, yes, by Karen Pugliese of APTN. I'm going to read this bit to you here, and I really recommend that you find this article. It's called "Leaked Tape: If the Provinces Aren't Trying Hard Enough, We'll Bring Them Up." Carney tells chiefs, and in this article. Um, um, they talk about the closing session of that summit. And in the closing session of that summit, there was a 1 hour question and answer session that was moderated by Mi'kmaq MP Jaime Batiste, who's the parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations and Indigenous himself, of course. The session was behind closed doors and media was not allowed in, with the exception of the opening speech by the Prime Minister. But there were leaked audio tapes of the event, which have allowed the APTN News to hear what happened inside. And in that article, there's a full and unedited recording of the Prime Minister's Q&A session, the full sort of hour. So if people are interested in what happened, the portions that the government of Canada didn't think that we should be able to hear, um, Indigenous chiefs made sure that we were able to hear it. So, if this is a file that interests you, I highly recommend this article so that you can listen to that session. I have not yet, so I can't tell you what's there. That's my plan for today, to listen to that. But I have found other things that I can bring you to give you an idea of what has sort of been the aftermath of that. Um, Now, it seems that um, in this, they were asked, government prime minister was asked about respecting treaty rights and what they will do to help that, and made some comments. It's like that our problem is not only with the federal government, but with the provincial governments, because a lot of these projects are going to be advanced by provincial governments, and anyone that happens to be strictly within the territory of a provincial government. Like, for example, if a pipeline like the LNG pipeline in British Columbia that's just opened, that just had the first tanker that was filled, and that tanker has actually arrived at destination over the course of the weekend. So, with the first successful shipment of Canadian LNG to an Asian market has now taken place. But that pipeline was all within British Columbia, so there was no interprovincial issue here, and that was completely within the control of the provincial government. So there are some projects at times that are within the full control of a provincial government, and in that case, um, you know, if the provincial government rejects it, well, you know, what's the prime minister going to do with regard to the larger issue of C5? And it seems that the prime minister has said that you know he would do what he could to make sure that the provinces will do what they need to do, right? If the provinces aren't trying not hard enough, we'll bring them up, Carney tells chiefs. But unfortunately, with all of that, seems to be very, very adamant that he will not amend the law in any way. And I do not think that that is going to serve him well here. Uh, Now, you have to understand that the prime minister is in a certain situation where he sees what's coming on with the United States and feels the need to move quickly, and he is not incorrect because the bigger threat is not what's going on right now, but in 2026 when Kuzma or NAFTA 2 comes up for review. Now, review was only supposed to be a review of the changes made last time. Are we okay with them? Do we need to make a couple of tweaks? And then if we do, then, then we agree on them. And this is in place now for a good long time. I think it was going to be like for another, don't quote me on that, but way more than just 6 years. Let's put it this way, which was the time of this particular review. Um, it seems that the president of the United States might want to just go into a full renegotiation at that point. And as we've mentioned several times on the show, what the US government really dislikes about CUSMA is that it's a tripartite deal because all of its deals are all bilateral because the United States likes to ultimately have the control in case of a dispute, right, and control of the dispute mechanism, settling for lack of a better word, because it almost always votes in favor of the United States. But whatever mechanism is there. Uh, so the big fear at the moment is that the United States, Donald Trump just unilaterally decides, well, he doesn't want a tripartite deal anymore, or just doesn't want CUSMA anymore and just wants to go with straight tariffs. Because right now, all trade that is CUSMA compliant is not subject to the tariffs. And while that was about 60 or 70% of trade at the beginning of the year when this started, because some people just found the paperwork too cumbersome and it was better to pay the small tariffs that were involved at that time rather than do the work. Since all of this has started, now over 90% of Canadian companies that are doing 90% of exports to the United States are now CUSMA compliant because a lot of people saw some interest in filling out that paperwork finally. So the move from the threat from 25 to 35%, even though it sounds drastic, won't really affect us all that much. Right. It's the other sectoral tariffs, the ones that are outside of that, like the steel and aluminum ones and the ones on copper, the ones that are allegedly under, threat of national security or to the 232 tariffs as they're, those ones as they're beginning to be known. Um, those ones are the ones that are doing us the most damage at the moment. But the big fear is that in 2026, Trump will just want to pull the rug out from underneath us and say, what, there is no more CUSMA. And then all of a sudden, over 90% of our trade is now tariffed at 35%. So that's the thing that people are worried about. And that's the possibility that the prime minister sees down the road. So he would really like to get as many things as possible started as soon as possible so that we can head that off at the pass in case that is an eventuality, which means in his mind, I would assume that there is less time for formalities and niceties and all the typical type of um, I don't want to say the word soft dealing, but I mean it in terms of like soft dealing as in soft power. I don't have the appropriate term in my mind for this, but um, the whole getting to know you and having time to go through the history of stuff and all that kind of stuff. Um, I'm sure he's sitting there going, he hears a clock ticking. Yeah, that's all very important, but we don't have time for that now. Right? We need to move. Just trust that I'm committed to this. and we will take care of this, but we really got to start doing this now, right? But that relies on trust me, and well, trust me has not worked very well so much for Indigenous communities. So there is a tension there. Um, and that's the big fear that's probably motivating him. Um, Unfortunately, uh, I don't even want to say unfortunately because that's not the right word either. But what's what's making his job harder is, even though he would like to be able to skip over that part, it would seem, in order to get stuff done now, because tick, 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 the clock's ticking. There's other people that are not within the federal government who don't have access to all that data, who don't have access to see it, uh, who understand that there's an issue and that we have to move quickly, but don't have the charts and the data and all that kind of stuff in front of them to sit and see, like, here's what the real full impact could be. And, you know, want the case to be made more. If you want our help, you got to let us know what's going on really and give us the full picture so that we know why it is that we're doing this. And so it's easy for people to say, well, gee, you know why you're doing it. I mean, look at the guy south of you. But full, prior, free, and informed consent, right? You need to have all the information. So the case on both sides, right, is very strong. And it makes it very easy to get into a situation where two sides are talking past each other. So in this here, um, I do not see how this can move forward without some type of process to open and amend the law, because the main concern is that the law as written does not do what the prime minister says it does, because there is that last minute or that last stage uh, spot in the process where the one person to which the file is assigned, whatever file it is, can decide they're going to override stuff in order to get this done or get this moving, which could then mean, right, overriding an objection. At the same time, you have Indigenous Services Minister Mandy Galmasti in press conferences after the session saying things like, well, um, when it comes to approving a project that would not have Indigenous consent, from what she can understand that the Prime Minister says, is that there's almost zero chance of it happening. The problem in that sentence for certain Indigenous communities is the word almost. Right? They want it to be, if we say no, then you need to find another route or another path. There shouldn't be some override. We are a nation. We've said no. There should not be an extra step where you can turn around and, "Well, we understand that you said no, but we need this anyway, so it's gonna happen." And that's where the ultimate, uh, from my understanding, the ultimate headbutting is taking place here. Um, so in this article, for example, it says some chiefs, including Abraham Benedict, the Grand Chief of the Chiefs of Ontario, went into the meeting hoping Carney would agree to bring the law back to Parliament for amendments. 9 First Nations in Ontario are launching legal action to try and stop the One Canadian Economy Act, saying it threatens their right to self-determination, the environment, and fundamental human freedoms. Mississauga of Sququag Island First Nation is not among those involved in the court case, but Chief First Nation Kelly LaRocca, speaking on behalf of the Mississauga Nation communities, told Carney they reject the law. Quote, "We unequivocally reject Bill 5 and say no. That's in honor of our youth, who we heard speak yesterday at the Chiefs of Ontario," said LaRocca. In response to a bully, the federal government has run roughshod over First Nations. You risk repeating historical mistakes for which your government has long since apologized, she said. Ramming Bill C5 through Parliament without consultation is a resounding call to action of our First Nation governments. Democracy is at its most vulnerable. LaRocca asked the government if the government would amend the law to include free, prior, and informed consent, noting that the law requires written consent from provinces and territories, but does not state it requires consent from First Nations. She also asked if the act could be amended to include accommodations and consider a substantive repeal of the section of the act that allows the federal cabinet to allow certain major projects to skip specific environmental rules or laws that would normally apply. Carney's reply suggests the government is not willing to reopen the legislation for amendments. Quote, with respect to the bill, which is now law of the land, the issue is how we move forward with it, Carney replied. How consultations, once they begin on these projects, are conducted. How, if a project is possible to be of interest, if there is support for a project, what are the conditions around those projects and the consultations for those conditions, how the accountability for fulfilling those conditions is in place, and what are the penalties for those project proponents if they don't meet all of those conditions. And that process is about to begin. And then the question of right to withhold consent and stop a project came up more than once, with the most direct phrased question coming from a man who identified himself as a citizen of the Gitchin and Wet'suwet'en First Nations. Quote, what I'm concerned about here is the process. In this process is what happens when we say no. And Wet'suwet'en had to learn that the hard way. We learned what happens when we said no, he said, referencing aggressive responses by police to land protectors that took place from 2019 to 2020. Quote, with respect to the last question, in terms of the approach that you referenced, it's not one with which I'm very familiar. I know the headlines of it, but I don't know the details, replied Carney. You probably should. There are different views, even in this room, about the desirability of that project amongst different First Nations, and the question is there a process that can develop and reconcile those views so that there's a consensus around it and the project with certain conditions in a certain way as possible? And if not, there will be other projects, Carney said. In terms of letters that or input that I've received directly, my fellow members of cabinet have received and the government have received. There are a lot of projects that have the characteristics that we've been talking about first and foremost, that are in the interest and are proposed and championed by First Nations and that are supportive of our environmental goals and that have major economic benefits. There are a lot of projects that are being proposed, and we're going to focus on those where there is support, those where there are possibilities, those where we can help make a difference. So it seems here that what the Prime Minister is saying is, listen, there's a lot of projects that are going to be proposed, and we're not going to be able to do all of them at once. So at the moment, you don't have to worry about that, because if there's a no, we'll just pick another project. We have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to proposed projects. Seems to be the thinking, but that still doesn't change the law as it is written. And that is the thing with which communities are most concerned. So we'll see what goes on with that. But yes, there are some issues. It seems also that the Prime Minister has agreed to visit some First Nations, notably the Mississaugas of Skokog Island First Nation region and the Cold Lake First Nation. And that's something he's going to have to do, and he's probably going to have to do it in every province or territory. Actually take some time and go meet some communities on their own turf and have some conversations there. So Kits and Cubs, I had been looking for it, and I did manage to find it eventually, thanks to, I believe it is the feed of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. And they have, they had recorded and released the intervention by former AFN National Chief Ovid Macready. And I would like to present it to you. The volume and clarity sometimes is a little iffy because it was recorded, from a camera to the side of him as he was delivering it. Because I think as Canadians, I myself, non-Indigenous, but fully supportive of the path towards reconciliation and the concept of walking hand in hand with First Nations down a new path. That's my personal bias. I know other people have different takes on it, and that's all fine and good. We all are where we are. But for me, as a Canadian, I don't understand how it is I can possibly hold my government accountable to its commitment to move forward on the path of truth and reconciliation if you don't get to hear what Indigenous leaders are saying to the government when they're at these summits. And the way that this summit was designed is that we hear, principally coming from the summit itself, only that which the Prime Minister had to say at the opening ceremony. And that doesn't give us as Canadians a complete picture. So, for the benefit of the complete picture, and because uh, these 10 minutes or so did not have the benefit of being broadcast through CPAC or anything like that so that we could all see them, I am going to play them for you here. So it is again, former National Chief Ovid Mercati. You will be able to see him making some of the points I made with regard to not having the full picture, you know, uh, having to share that information with these other nations if you want their help. You can't just say that Donald Trump is a menace and therefore you must help us. You have to give them more than that, right? It has to be informed consent. So you need to give them that data and then making the case here. Now, it's not all negative. Right? You will see in his words that there's an openness. He's not standing there and saying, this is terrible and you need to walk away from it and all this kind of stuff like other people and people who did walk away from the session have. This, it's not conciliatory at all, but he is not closed-minded to the idea that there could be a need for this, right? Or that the overall goal is bad, but it might just be more a process issue here. So this is stating the concern without closing the door. So I would like to present this to you, and hopefully you will find it as edifying as I did when I watched it, because again, you need to hear the other side and try to understand where the side is coming from. All right. Whoops. Okay, I'm not sure why it didn't go all the way. So I guess what
I was hoping to learn from the government what the emergency is, what the crisis is for Canada. I didn't hear that. I don't know why there inserts fear with the United States. I need to know that. Like, if you want us to work with you to support your goals for wealth, we need to know how that wealth that you want to protect is threatened by the tariffs. We don't know that. We're not in government, and we're not talking to officials in the United States or even within Manitoba, say south of us with North Dakota. We have no idea what those conversations are about. But you want us to give you a leap of faith to support you on this legislation that is causing fear for us, fear for our rights as a people. I think it's incumbent upon you to persuade us why we should support your country at this time. And I have not heard that story yet. But I also wanted to say to you, I don't believe you. Because 150 years ago, my ancestors signed what is called Treaty 5 in my community. One of my own ancestors signed that agreement, that treaty, Treaty 5. It's 150 years old this year. And it has not been honored by the country. We have never seen the wealth that was supposed to come from sharing the land with the settler. So how are we to be confident with the words and phrases that you are telling us today about equity and meaningful consultation. To me, facts are more important than promises that may never be seen. And I want the Prime Minister to tell us how he intends to honor Treaty 5. And I'm only speaking about that treaty because it is a treaty my ancestors signed. But the call for honoring the treaties would apply to all the numbered treaties. What are you going to do about sharing the wealth that was gained by your country this past 150 years that we have not seen?
Jasper.
So, I don't have a question, but I have a request for the Prime Minister to come to our territories, to sit down with us, the First Nations with treaties after Confederation. And you will learn from that conversation that the land that makes up those treaties was stolen in 1670 by King Charles II. And you will know also your country, Canada, received that land from the British Parliament in 1868. And that was before you came to talk to us about treaty. Your country already assumed that land was yours, but it never was, and it still is not.
Woo!
Na eu ininunina disipais tu kursi uteai opinion. Mr. Prime Minister, I'm looking at you right now. I don't see you as an average politician, not at all. I see you with hope for me and my people. And I think you need to sit down with us beyond this conversation here to really get to the bottom of that relationship that was established when the treaties were made. And let it be known also that if we see no action about sharing wealth, and I'm not talking about future development, I'm talking about past wealth created by the country. If we see no progress in that, we're going to hold the descendants of Queen Victoria accountable. We will go to London. Because the treaties are made in the name of Queen Victoria. And she said to our people, we will share the benevolence of the crown with you. We have not seen that.
No, we haven't.
So, in conclusion, Mr. Prime Minister, how am I people to share the pain with their country right now if we don't know what the pain is because of the tariffs? And we don't want to share the pain in a form of cutbacks to services and programs that are essential to the well-being of our communities right now. So that's another promise that you can make today. Because unlike the former prime ministers who dealt with the deficit of the country, and the former prime minister said to me, face-to-face COVID, you have to share in the pain. Your people have to share in the pain. And you ought to do your part with deficit reduction, which was not our issue. Now, the promise of the treaty is real. It was the idea of two distinct people coming together to build something together that would be beneficial to both nations. But that never happened. Panic. Why? And then instead, your mission was coast to coast to create this country. And the provinces emerged on our territories, and they had no interest, no desire to share the wealth with our people, and that is visible today. We want you to rescind the NRTA. Because that breaks the treaty. That is a break of the treaty, just like the Indian Act was a break of the treaty when the promise for schools in our communities did not happen because the power was given to the churches to establish schools called residential schools. The churches did not make that treaty, we did. But they benefited from it. And the reason why our people are now calling upon you to share the wealth is because we could not do it before now. Because the Indian Act prohibited lawyers coming to our defense. And then our children were sent into residential schools so they would lose their language and their culture and their spirituality. That would put us in a state of confusion for more than 50 decades. 5 decades. They would say, you see, there's always a limit to our conversation in forums like this. But if you come to our territory, we will honor you, we will treat you with respect as you deserve as the head of this country. But at the same time, we would expect you to honor our people and our leaders likewise.
I will say.
So there you have it, Kid Stubbs. Ovid McCready making the points here that, you have to come to us and tell us, what this threat is. What is it that you are so afraid of? We don't have all the data. We're not in government. We don't see all the things that you see. You need to come to us. You need to share it with us. You need to make the case, right? You can't just say there's a problem and, you got to help. And if you don't help, well, we'll make it such that we don't care about whether or not you've consented or not. We'll just take what we need, right? And again, right, saying that he looks to the Prime Minister with hope. So invites them to their nations. Says, we will receive you with the honor that you deserve. And then we hope that you would do the same. Right? So again, and then as you noticed at the end, when he was talking, there was the moderator that told him that his time was up and pointed out, see, there's always a time limit. There's always a time limit. So there's never the ability to say the full piece. Right? So going on to their land and staying there the full day, the full evening for food and ceremony and prayer, sleeping there, waking up the next day, actually taking the time, making the time, showing that the relationship is important enough that you will set aside the time so that you can get to know them not only for what they can bring you, but for who they are. Two very different mindsets, right? I have an objective. We need to do ABC. Boom, let's go there. The other one is like, if you want our help, you need to show you care about us for more than just the help. So hopefully the Prime Minister will start getting the message and will do that, which needs to be done. Like I said, he has announced that he will visit 2 nations. Hopefully he will visit a few more. And hopefully he will change his mind with regard to amendments. Because at the moment, and maybe it's because the Prime Minister is not a legislator himself, and more of a finance person, but the law does not do what it is he claims it does, because it does have that failsafe. And even though he personally might be of all the best intentioned, First Nations have learned over the course of the years and the decades that you get it down on paper and you make sure that it's written the absolute right way. And there's almost no getting around that these days. So it'll be interesting to see what transpires from that end. Um, Also, with regard to this matter, um, because after the meetings with the First Ministers, um, Mark Carney is scheduled to go to Inuvik for a closed door huddle with members of the Inuit Crown Partnership Committee to go over the next steps in the rollout of his government's controversial pitch to accelerate the approval process for projects deemed to be in the national interest. That will take place on Thursday, and this is according to Katie O'Malley of iPolitics. And as Canadian Press notes, the one-day session will be co-hosted by Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami President Natan Obed and comes after the meeting in Gatineau of last week to discuss the law. Carney's northern itinerary will also include a brief visit to Fort Smith, Northwest Territories, where he was born and spent his early childhood. It's worth noting that the premiers have also set time to meet with Indigenous leaders, including council representatives of the Assembly of First Nations, the Métis National Council, and the Native Women's Association of Canada for what Doug Ford's office is framing as, quote, a focused discussion on the economic development, economic reconciliation, and other key priorities for Indigenous peoples and communities. So that's the part of the agenda taking place in the first ministers' meeting, the 3-day meeting, but the first part today, which is focusing on relationships with Indigenous communities, that's taking place today. So they'll be meeting with those groups. But when it comes to the Prime Minister's meeting with Inuit communities later this week, Natan Obed, again, who is the president of ITK, has declined the invitation to participate in that. Not in that. It seems declined the invitation to participate in today's meetings with all the first ministers. Quote, as we have been unable to reach agreement on the composition of the meeting. ITK welcomes opportunities to share Inuit priorities with Canada's premiers. However, the upcoming meeting in Huntsville, Ontario follows the pattern of the Council of the Federation to include organizations that represent fraudulent collectives that falsely claim to represent Inuit. Outcomes from the meeting will perpetuate confusion and uncertainty at a time when the opposite is needed. So it seems there, when it comes to Inuit communities, and this is a long-standing thing, you hear about it every now and then it pops up, is that there are other organizations than ITK who purport that they speak and represent Inuit communities. But according to the ITK, just either the way that they are composed or the way they go about doing their business or how the representation takes place is not what they would consider as being representing Inuit communities. And in fact, they're going so far as to claim that the other organizations that do that are basically fraudulently claiming that they represent the Inuit. But it seems that the members of the Council of the Federation keep on inviting them and they keep on wanting to deal with them to the displeasure of the ITK. So, again, it would seem that the federal government definitely is further along the path of reconciliation than the Council of the Federation is, and there might be some more work there. So, again, when the Prime Minister says, we will work to bring them up. There might be some stuff, again, as it pertains to this that relates to the Prime Minister's mention that he will work to bring them up. But they are independent governments to a certain extent on their own, right, with their own free will. So that might be easier said than done at this point. So to the big meeting at the moment coming. So today will be with Indigenous leaders, as we mentioned, some of the groups in that previous thing. The Assembly of First Nations, Métis National Council, and the Native Women's Association of Canada will be there. But But then there will be the next 2 days after that, and the second day we'll have uh, Prime Minister Mark Carney there, basically um, giving the first ministers an update on the status of trade negotiations with the United States, which the Prime Minister has said that he expects those negotiations to intensify in the lead up to August 1st. Today is Monday, July 21st, which was the day that was supposed to be the deadline before Trump unilaterally pushed it back again. Our prime minister, again, clearly not seeing the need for a first mover advantage, said, well, if you're going to delay the date, we'll delay the date on ours too. So hopefully there will be something on the first, and we don't get another date pushback once again, because we need to get moving here on this. It would seem that the top priorities for the premiers are pushing, the top priorities that they are pushing include pipelines and mining in Ontario's Ring of Fire region, and chiefs have said that that must not happen by governments skirting their duty to consult. Ontario Premier Doug Ford term as the head of the Council of the Federation is also coming to an end, which is probably good for Canada, because it was as a result of him being at the head of the Federation that he was able to do that whole Captain Canada shtick that only lasted the duration of the snap provincial election, and then he seemed to have shelved it because he hasn't been acting very Captain Canada-ish since then. And basically deferring everything. Doug Ford, of course, trying to take credit for calling this meeting, saying, I asked the Prime Minister for it and he agreed. And of course, it's taking place in the Muskoka so that Doug Ford doesn't have to travel too far away from the cottage in order to attend and to hold it. Sorry. Sometimes get a little bitchy. That man is so lazy. Oh my God. It's unreal. So yes, one of the other elements that is going to be discussed is softwood lumber. It seems that the government of Canada is trying to get some type of finalized agreement on softwood lumber, which might have to do with accepting certain quota rules in order to reduce the tariffs, because the tariffs had gone, I think, from something like 8% to close to 15% sometime in 2024. That industry would like to be able to eliminate those tariffs or reduce them again. And it seems that we might have to accept quotas in order to be able to achieve that. According to Premier David Eby, quote, "We want to get access to the same level of attention, for example, on the softwood lumber as Ontario gets on the auto parts sector, and that we get the same amount of attention on capital projects as Alberta is currently getting in relation to their proposals." Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has been making a big push for new pipelines, but said during a press conference Friday that her focus would also be on premiers working together to address the tariff threat, including interprovincial trade. Quote, "I was really pleased to sign a memorandum of understanding with Doug Ford during the time he was here during Stampede, and other provinces are working on those same kind of collaborative agreements," she said. We need to do more to trade with each other, and I hope that that's in the spirit of discussion. You have a Premier Scott Moe as well that has been pushing for more provinces to join something called, I think is like the Western Trade Alliance or something. It seems that the 4 provinces out west have moved forward previously on better interprovincial free trade, and that they have now extended the invitation to the 4 maritime provinces to sort of join that. They want everybody to join it, of course, but Ontario and Quebec being the 2 biggest provinces population-wise, coming into the deal could change a lot of things because just numbers. So I'm guessing that they want to reach out to the 4 Atlantic provinces first, and that would leave just Ontario and Quebec and territories if they're not part of it already, which would sort of diminish their pull at the time that they would want to join. It's a little similar to what's going on with CPTPP and CETA. If they both join together, the United States and China are not part of either of them. So if they did want to join eventually, well, all of us here have already established some rules and regulations, so you can't upend the whole thing. You're going to have to join on our terms and a little less on yours. And I think that's sort of maybe the strategy here with regards to Ontario and Quebec. But it seems that there's some outreach that way as well. So there's lots of stuff going on interprovincially in order to get to um, more barrier-free trade. There was also a big agreement between all of the provinces except Newfoundland and Labrador with regard to alcohol to permit direct-to-consumer sales. So now, if you're in Ontario and there's a BC wine that you like, you can, deal directly with the winery and have whatever bottles you would like shipped to you, and there will the transportation of alcohol across provincial borders and all those limits will no longer apply. I'm not exactly sure why it is that Newfoundland and Labrador hasn't joined the other 9 on this one at the moment, so I'll have to go back and read on that. But when it was announced, it was 9 of the 10 provinces on that one. So there is some movement going on there and some developments that have been happening. Let's see, what else do we have here with regard to this First Minister's meeting here? Ford has also taken a lead role on increasing interprovincial trade, signing MOUs with several provinces and enacting a law to remove all of Ontario's exceptions to free trade between the provinces and territories. Nova Scotia's Tim Houston is another premier banging on the drum of interprovincial trade, saying the trade war is forcing action on it. Quote, "We're seeing the benefit of work threats from the US by breaking down internal trade barriers and opportunities to expand in other international markets," he wrote in a statement. Ford said the premiers will also talk about emergency management, energy security, sovereignty and national security, health, and public safety. The premiers have also been pushing the federal government to reform bail laws, and Carney said last week that legislation will be introduced in the fall, and he expects to discuss the issue with the premiers on Tuesday. And then let's see. Yep, and that's about it that we have from here. With the last bit is talking about Ford's presidency of the Council of the Federation about to end very soon. I think it's ending at the end of this meeting because there's some type of dinner planned at the end of it that he is hosting, and I'm guessing that would be his final goodbye here. At least for not final goodbye. I wish it was his final goodbye. But as president of the council. Trying to see here. There's another article from iPolitics I have here with me. Nope, and those are pretty much similar things. So that's about all what we have on that for you at the moment, and I'm sure that there will be continuing news coming from it as the next couple of days go by that we will be able to report on. So those are the 2 big things, the rest of the fallout from the meeting on Friday, and then these 3 days of meetings with the preparation of the next summit, this time with Inuit communities happening on Thursday, I believe it is. Getting ready for that. Hopefully there will be some lessons learned from what happened last Friday. There are fewer groups to deal with because, again, over 600 First Nations, there are fewer Inuit. So maybe lessons learned from how invitations went out, for how the agenda was prepared, all of that kind of stuff. Maybe those lessons learned can be applied a little more easily because smaller numbers allow the federal government to be more nimble. But it will be interesting to see if there is indeed any learning that has taken place between those 2 summits. All right. The other thing that has taken place, kits and cubs, and we didn't get to speak about it when it happened, but the Prime Minister did have something to say with regard to steel and aluminum tariffs last week, which was rather important. And I want to bring this to you because one of the things we have been talking about on the show is the lack so far of any real announcement with regard to health industry specifically and helping workers. There had been some revisions to EI qualification rules and wait periods before benefits could start that were announced some time ago, and those have gone into effect, and they seem to be working relatively well. But we hadn't heard that much else about, what was going to be done with the funding that we have raised, the money we have raised from counter tariffs, because the promise is that 100% of that money would go into supporting the industries and supporting workers. But we never really heard like a specific announcement that was like, it's not like the prime minister or some ministers came to the podium at one time and said, okay, here's what we are doing specifically to help industry and to help workers, and making that the big focus of the announcement. And this time, he did. Now, unfortunately, the headlines from this weren't, government plans to support workers with this. It was sort of overall, Prime Minister Carney announced his support for the steel industry type thing. But in there were some announcements with regard to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to present in 3 little bits what Prime Minister Carney had to say. Of course, the first bit is often setting the table for what is to come, and then we'll look at some specific measures that he is bringing forward, and then concentrating on measures to support workers in industry, and then another manner that he is looking to reorganize the way that the industry works in order to ensure its longer term viability. Right. So let's just get this up for you here. And that would be it. This one can go full screen, unlike the other one. So here we go, kids and cubs.
We have the potential to become our own best customer for steel, but we will lose that ability if we don't manage the profound transformation now underway in the industry. And to do that, we have to change the way we do things so we can better support our companies and our workers during this time of change. And that's why I'm proud to announce today that Canada's new government will do several things. First, we will take a series of measures to stabilize our domestic steel market and prevent harmful trade diversion arising from current trade tensions. Informed by the review of our steel trade arrangements that we announced last month, the following changes to tariff rate quotas will take effect by the end of this month. For steel products from non-free trade agreement countries, we will tighten the tariff rate quota level to 50% of 2024 volumes and apply a 50% tariff on any imports beyond those levels. For steel products from partners with free trade agreements, we will introduce a tariff rate quota level for steel products at 100% of 2024 volumes and apply the same 50% tariffs on imports above those levels. The government is reviewing its remission framework to favor the use of Canadian steel and aluminum in Canadian-made products. And we will also implement additional tariffs on steel imports from all non-U.S. countries containing steel melted and poured in China. Our existing arrangements with our CUSMA partners will remain the same, including no changes to our current trade measures with the United States. The combination of all these measures will ensure that Canadian steel producers have a bigger share of the Canadian market. They will create more resilient supply chains and unlock private capital for Canadian production. But given the dynamics in global trade, we will reassess all of our existing trade arrangements with respect to steel, consistent with the progress made in our bilateral discussions with the United States, and will also take into account the steel negotiations that the U.S. is currently undertaking with other countries, because what happens in those will affect what happens here.
All right, kids and cubs. So that's the first bit with regard to what the Prime Minister has announced. I'll just switch back to myself here for a second. There you go. And so the first bit of these elements here have to do with changing the levels, the amount of steel that comes in from nations with which we do not have a free trade agreement. And it seems before higher duties start to apply. And it would seem here that in this case that they are going to be reducing that by about half. So they call these TRQs, tariff rate quotas here. And tariff rate quotas will be extended to countries that have a free trade agreement in force with Canada, with the exception of the United States and Mexico. This will result in a 50% surtax being applied on steel imports above 100% of 2024 levels. And for the countries that do not have a free trade agreement with Canada, the quota for tariff-free imports will be reduced to 50% of 2024 levels. A 50% surtax will be applied on steel imports exceeding this threshold here. And then, as you mentioned, melt and pour tariffs, there will be a 25% surtax that will be applied on all imports from all countries other than the U.S. that contain steel that was melted and poured in China. I believe that's one of the ways that when they talk about dumping product, that's one of the ways that it happens. And it says that this measure will be implemented before the end of July. So to prevent other companies from circumventing the trade measures. Then he gets in here to more measures here that are more for the labor market and to shore up the industry. So this is the part, these are the things that I've been waiting for the government to announce for a certain amount of time. And now they are here.
Second, we will invest in Canadian steel companies and, above all, in Canadian steel workers. Building on previously announced enhancements to employment insurance and the EI work-sharing program, the Government of Canada will invest $70 million in labour market development agreements to provide training and income support for up to 10,000 affected steel workers. Through reskilling investments and increased worker supports, we will ensure workers have the skills and the support that they need to meet the future needs of this industry. To build a more resilient and diversified steel industry that serves the needs of a growing Canada, the government will provide $1 billion through the Strategic Innovation Fund to help Canadian steel companies advance projects that will increase their competitiveness, that will catalyze their production of steel products that are not currently produced in Canada, and to create jobs to serve growing sectors of our economy, including in defence. The Business Development Bank of Canada's Pivot to Grow initiative is also being enhanced to provide support to eligible small and medium-sized steel enterprises that face liquidity challenges. And $150 million of the government's Regional Tariff Response Initiative through its regional development agencies will be prioritized for the steel industries. And finally, the large enterprise tariff loan program that was introduced at the start of this year will be updated in several ways will expand eligibility and provide lower cost financing to firms in the steel industry. These changes will include reducing the minimum annual revenue requirements of borrowers from $300 million to $150 million, reducing the minimum loan size from $60 million to $30 million, extending the loan maturities from 5 to 7 years, reducing the initial interest rate, all while requiring companies to retain and reinvest in their workers. Through this series of measures, we'll help ensure that Canadian steel companies have the capital and the workers and the time to build the skills, the tools, the facilities to serve a growing Canada.
All right. So that was the second bit of news that was there. And as you can hear, it was very strong on supports for workers and for the industry itself. So $70 million over 3 years for steel workers via labor market development agreements that will those supports will be developed in partnership with workers, employers, and provinces and territories to retrain and upskill up to 10,000 steel workers. The funding will support access to targeted training, reskilling, financial related supports, and job retention programs to ensure workers can continue contributing to a resilient and competitive steel sector and in-demand jobs. And the measures will benefit mid-career, long-tenured steel workers affected by U.S. tariffs and global market shifts. And then there was also a $1 billion for Strategic Innovation Fund to support the steel industry's transition towards new lines of business and to strengthen domestic supply chains. And funding will be provided to support the competitiveness of Canada's steel companies by enhancing competitiveness of domestic steel companies to serve the domestic market, supporting the production of steel products not currently produced in Canada, supporting the production of steel products needed by strategic sectors such as defense, and anchoring the presence of steel companies that are or would become commercially viable in a sustained tariff environment. There's also a regional tariff response initiative that which has funding for Canada's regional development agencies so that it can better support businesses. Up to $150 million of the $450 million regional tariff response initiative will be targeted to small and medium enterprise projects in the steel sector. And that will be launched very shortly with details for potential applicants coming up at that time. There is also, he mentioned, a large enterprise tariff loan facility that gives and this was created in March of this year, and put $10 billion of financing available to as a facility to support Canadian companies that were affected by actual or potential tariffs. And they said that the terms will be revised to enable the Canada Enterprise Emergency Funding Corporation to provide targeted support to the steel industry. And then there are, all the things that he mentioned there with regard to easy criteria, like reducing the minimum loan size criterion from 60 million to 30 million, because it seems that, like I said, they weren't doing loans lower than 60 million. So now, if you need a smaller loan for a smaller business, that's now accessible. Reducing the minimum annual revenue criteria from 300 million to 150 million. So if you are making less because you are selling less because of the tariffs, you don't need to worry. You no longer have to meet that $300 million threshold to apply. That's been halved. And of course, the interest rate at which that these loans are going to be made available are going to move away from CORA, which is the Canadian Overnight Repo Rate Average, which is set by the Bank of Canada. So it's that plus 400 basis points to now it's going to be that plus 200 basis points. And the loan maturity will increase from 5 years to 7 years. So you'll have more time to pay for it. You can apply for smaller loans. Your revenue doesn't need to be as high. And the additional interest rate above the CORA rate will be halved. So that should make things a little easier. And then the final point that the Prime Minister is making as to what he will do to help the steel industry adjust to the new reality or to changing realities has to do with the use of steel domestically.
Now, we will also prioritize using Canadian steel to build the big projects that we're undertaking, including millions of new homes, new ports, bridges, energy infrastructure, and investments in our security and defense capabilities. As we deliver on our mandate to build big things faster, we will ensure that Canadian steel and other Canadian materials are prioritized in that construction. And to that end, we will change the federal government's procurement process to require companies contracting with the federal government to source Canadian steel for government contracts. I see we didn't have to do that for Walter's group, who did it directly when in their service of Parliament and many other, and the museums across this great nation.
So there you go, kids and cubs. Finally, the last little bit on that is, whoops. God, I don't know where I disappeared to, but wait a minute. Here I am. There you go. The last little bit, of course, will be to change federal procurement processes such that companies that will be contracting with the federal government will be required, where possible, to source their steel from Canadian companies. Companies will only be granted a ministerial exemption if they attest in writing that no Canadian steel producer could or want to produce the steel required. So yes, again, as we are doing that. And then there's a last little bit that's called a program that was launched in the winter 2025 called Pivot to Grow, which was a $500 million fund administered by the Business Development Bank of Canada. And that seeks to help small and medium-sized enterprises transition to new markets and increase productivity. There will be more flexible repayment terms through that fund, with the financing to provide liquidity support to eligible steel, small and medium-sized enterprises facing liquidity concerns. And the Business Development Bank of Canada will make further details about those changes available shortly as well. So again, some good moves to shore up the industry, needed moves. They seem to have been pretty much well received overall, and it's nice to hear some very concrete plans to support workers and industry. Haven't heard of a similar one yet for the auto industry, haven't heard of one similar yet for the lumber industry. And of course, in the background, there's also what's going on with regard to China and its 100% tariffs on certain agricultural products, and its high tariffs. I'm not sure if they're 100% as well or a little lower, but on fish and seafood products. I can't remember off the top of my head if they were also 100% is what I'm trying to say. And I would have to look that up to refresh my mind here. But there's work on that happening in the background. It's not getting as much attention as the US one, mainly because, again, China's a rational actor and likes to discuss trade the way that we've become used to it, behind closed doors, and we make an announcement when we have one, as opposed to negotiating in public in the manner in which and grandstanding in which the United States has been doing. So on that front, with regard to the United States, there's lots of more talk that we've been hearing, Mr. Letnick and all of that, and again, more talk about stating that there will be some type of baseline tariff. Again, it seems the talk seems to be focused around 10%, which was the original announcement. And again, dismissing the fact that free trade is dead between our nations, pointing to CUSMA and all of that. But again, he doesn't particularly have the ear of the president, as we have discovered. So paying a lot of attention to what he has to say is not necessarily the greatest part, not the thing that we can most rely upon. But I wanted to present a very short side by side, or one after another, of comments made by the Americans, which might give you an idea as to what is going on. behind closed doors because we don't get a lot of news from that from our side because, again, good trade negotiators do not negotiate in public, and good trade negotiators don't react to what people on the other side are doing, especially when they're doing things on the other side to either make noise or move a lot of wind, or maybe try to create some type of drama or create some type of crisis that would force the other side to react. We don't tend to react. So, 3 weeks ago, when the prime minister made the decision that he was going to rescind the digital services tax at the request of Donald Trump. And remember, all that we know for sure is that Donald Trump went to a microphone and said he was pulling out of the negotiations because of the digital services tax, which he claimed he had just learned about. But that's kind of BS because even the Biden administration didn't really like the digital services tax. So that was definitely on the US radar for quite a long time. And given the number of people from certain companies that paid a certain tribute to Donald Trump, I'm pretty sure he was very keenly aware of the Canadian digital services tax. Right. So him claiming he didn't know about it, that was coming as a surprise, there was a lot of BS. But at that time, the White House press secretary Carolyn Leavitt came out and made a statement that a lot of people then took as being the truth and ran with that. So let's listen to that statement. And this was June 30th, the United States on June 30th. This is what they were saying. And I do not know where the volume goes on these things. Oh my word. I am having the hardest time today being able to bring stuff up. I'm sorry, kits and cubs. That was supposed to play with some volume, and there is no volume button. So, unfortunately, what I'm trying to do right now is not happening the way I would like it to. But it was the clip of Carolyn Leavitt basically claiming that Carney. There we go. I found it from another feed. Thank you, Global, for making this available. Here we go.
It's very simple. Prime Minister Carney in Canada caved to President Trump in the United States of America. And President Trump knows how to negotiate, and he knows that he is governing the best country and the best economy in this world, on this planet. And every country on the planet needs to have good trade relationships with the United States. And it was a mistake for Canada to vow to implement that tax. That would have hurt our tech companies here in the United States. The President made his position quite clear to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister called the President last night to let the President know that he would be dropping that tax, which is a big victory for our tech companies and our American workers here at home.
All right. Now, kits and cubs, if you know anything about trade, you never, ever, 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 ever do that. And you can see how pleased she was to be able to announce that we caved, allegedly. And a lot of people ran with that. But we don't know if that's true. We just know that that's what the White House says. We don't even know for a fact that the digital services tax was the reason that Trump suspended the talks for half a day. He just said that that's what it was. And the White House press secretary is probably not the best source for absolute accurate information as to what's going on behind closed doors. Now, I'm going to swallow myself here by showing you the next clip, which, again, this one I tend more to believe because I know what's true about our own trade negotiating teams, that we have some of the best ones in the world. And so we went from June 30th and Leavitt claiming that Canada had completely caved to just a few days ago, I believe it's um, let's see, what date is this? On July 17th. So just 4 days ago, uh, Carolyn Levitt singing a somewhat very different tune with regard to Canadians and negotiating. So on the 30th, we were caving, but on July 17th, all of a sudden, uh, it's a different tale.
Last month, the Canadian Prime Minister said the President had agreed to a July 21st deadline to sort of work towards a trade agreement. That's 4 days from now. Could there be a trade agreement with Canada in 4 days?
Well, look, we'll see. The trade team continues to be very active in our conversations and discussions with Canada. The president himself has said, unfortunately, our neighbors to the north have been pretty difficult to deal with when it comes to matters on trade. But in trade, generally speaking, as you know, 25 countries have received letters thus far from the president directly with his big, beautiful signature on them, from Japan to Korea, South Africa, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, just a few countries, and Canada also received a letter for 35%.
Oh, so we went from Canada caved to, oh, well, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get an announcement done in 4 days because Canada has been very difficult to deal with. You're damn fucking right, we're difficult to deal with. We got the best trade negotiators in the world, and you throw the first 5 punches. Maybe for all the people that are running around there saying, elbows down, on your knees and elbows down, we caved. Maybe we didn't, because if we had caved, why would Carolyn Levitt have to come to a mic 17 days later and say that we're difficult to deal with? Yeah, because we're not letting you climb up on top all over us and having your way with us. You need more time, clearly, because we're doing the literal opposite of caving. We're not just letting you have what you want. Of course, you're saying that that's unfortunately because you would like people to obey advance and make things easy for you, and clearly we're not. Just a little note here. She doesn't seem as happy on July 17th as she was on June 30th. There's no little smirk, no little smile. And notice how quickly she moved away from the Canada issue and then said, oh, Canada issue, but hey, we've got all these other deals with Trump's big, beautiful signature on them. All those letters went out. All these other countries. Let's talk about anything but Canada. It's not going well for us right now. They're being difficult. Eventually they'll learn. So yeah, it's Trump, right? We just wake up one morning and we find out what it is that he's doing today. Since we're talking about people who bring the heat, you'll have to have been living under a rock if you haven't heard about the latest from Danielle Smith. And it seems that Danielle Smith is proving she is a lot like Trump in many, 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 many ways. And one of the ways is prosciutto thin skin. Yeah. We know that Danielle Smith likes to live in a world in which she is the absolute bestest at everything and has all the bestest ideas. And she knows more about everything than anyone else. And she knows the right way to go, and nobody else matters. And likes to force things on people despite the fact that they say no. She has a lot of things in common with Donald Trump. And it seems that inability for self-reflection or to accept any type of criticism whatsoever, no matter how mild, and I do mean mild, is an issue. Our good friends at the Breakdown Alberta had a little bit to say about this. So I'm going to just let Nate speak here and present a little bit of information with regard to Danielle and how it is that she reacted at the news from an independent report commissioned by the town of Jasper to look into how things were handled, not for the purposes of assigning blame, but as a regular exercise after a disaster. What did we do? What did we do well? What could have we done better? Where are things that we have to shore up? So in case it happens again, we can be more efficient in responding, right? Not about applying blame, but about looking at things with eyes wide open and, being willing to imagine that there exists a world in which you can improve.
The province of Alberta approaches the one-year anniversary of the tragic wildfire that destroyed a significant part of the town of Jasper. Danielle Smith is demanding an apology.
Whatever it is that they are trying to do to deflect blame, I'm not impressed with it, and I would ask for an apology.
Now, what Danny was responding to there was a question at a press conference that had to do with a new report coming from Jasper that is looking at what could have been done better before the wildfire, after the wildfire, and during the wildfire. And before we get into the problem with what Danny's saying there, we want to take a quick second to talk a little bit about the report and how it came to be. For context, the report basically makes up a review of 7 key management plans of the municipality. So it focuses quite heavily on the municipality of Jasper. There were 2 surveys that were completed by 138 firefighters and 115 incident management team members who were part of the response. And finally, there was a 1-day workshop that was attended by all levels of government. So again, all levels of government. That would presumably include the provincial government. So the provincial government was in some way involved in the production of this report. It shouldn't have come as a surprise to anybody, but nonetheless, Danny was very clearly surprised when she was asked these questions at a press conference. It came out swinging not only at the town of Jasper, but apparently also she was swinging at the firefighters and the emergency management professionals who were involved in the response before, during, and after the wildfire tore into the town. But what we want to take a quick second to focus on is that the criticism towards the way that the province tried to insert itself into the process during the wildfire is only a very small part of the report. There are 9 key themes that the report found, and there are 23 recommendations. Only one of them has to do with the way that the province was trying to insert itself into the process at various times. So it's not like Jasper is blaming Danielle Smith and the province for everything that happened. That's not the case at all. And in fact, the report goes out of the way to say that this report is not about assigning blame. It's about looking at what went wrong, what went right, and what can be learned from everything. Now, in order to highlight how, once again, Danielle Smith insisting on centering herself in the whole conversation and how her ego has taken over the entire narrative, we got to establish a couple of timelines first. Now, one of the best ways that we can make sense of the timeline of all of this is by taking a look at the actual report, because it very clearly shows on July 22nd, 2024, at just about 10 o'clock at night, an evacuation order was formally issued, prompting the evacuation of over 25,000 residents and visitors. The evacuation went very, very smoothly, though there was some confusion around some of the messaging that went on around it. The evacuation for the town of Jasper was issued at roughly 10 o'clock on July 22nd, 2024. That prompted the evacuation of roughly 25,000 residents and visitors. The evacuation, by all accounts, went very, very well. It wasn't until July 24th, almost 2 days later, that the fires were initially reported inside of the town of Jasper. Now, in order to try to make sense of what Danny's so upset about, we have to take a look at what the specific parts of the report are. So what Danielle Smith was asked about in the press conference had to do with the key theme number 3, delineating jurisdictions and authorities. From the report, the response to the Jasper wildfire complex demonstrated the effectiveness of the strong unified command established by the municipality of Jasper and Parks Canada. Provincial involvement added complexity to the response as the province of Alberta, though not jurisdictionally responsible to lead the incident, regularly requested information and sought to exercise decision-making authority. While Alberta Wildfire actively supported firefighting operations and participated in the IMT, jurisdictional overlap with the province created political challenges that disrupted the focus of incident commanders, leading to time spent managing inquiries and issues instead of directing the wildfire response and re-entry. So what the report is effectively saying there is that the province was welcome to be at the table, but because they kept trying to overstep what their authority was, and there was competing jurisdictions and apparently political maneuvering that was going on by the province of Alberta, incident commanders had their attention pulled away from the task on hand, which was defeating the wildfire. But let's get back to Danielle Smith and her demands for an apology, because on Friday, Danielle Smith was asked about the report, and instead of saying something like, I haven't read it yet because the report only came out on Friday, instead of saying something like that, Danny went on the attack.
We weren't involved. It was a Parks Canada fire. It was a Parks Canada and Jasper-led effort until the town burnt down. We only came in after the fact to help with cleaning up after the fires, removing the hot spots and making sure that the evacuees were taken care of and that we could get them on a pathway to return home. So if they were just looking at the immediate fire response, that's on them, and we shouldn't have been mentioned at all.
So what Danny's very clearly trying to do there is repaint the picture a little bit. She's trying to say, oh, the province of Alberta, we didn't have anything to do with anything until the town had actually burnt down. We weren't involved in any way whatsoever. We certainly weren't getting in the way. The Jasper is just painting a terrible, terrible picture here. It wasn't like that at all. But of course, that's not true. And in fact, here's Minister Mike Ellis speaking at a press conference on July 23rd, a full day before fires were reported inside of the town site. And he's explaining just how detailed his role was at that time.
I know that when myself and the Premier discussed it late last night, we were, of course, concerned as to what was happening in the town of Jasper and what indeed was the risk. As we continue to make phone calls with our Alberta Emergency Management, which we have embedded in those command teams up in the Jasper area, as well as any crisis point in the province of Alberta, the messaging changed. But these are very fluid situations. I don't want to be the Monday morning quarterback.
So according to the minister, Mike Ellis, Alberta was already embedded in the command structure. AEMA was embedded in the command structure, and apparently both Mike Ellis and Danielle Smith were making regular phone calls, looking for updates, looking for information, which is, again, exactly what the report says. Now,
So there you go, kits and cubs. You see Danielle Smith reacting, and she is emotional in that her voice is trembling, and when she's trying to deny it, she's tripping over her words, trying to pretend that there was no involvement whatsoever. And like Nate Pike, I like to go to the report. And he mentions, of course, he read from the report stating, of course, that, their ability, they're wanting to do this to overstep jurisdictional boundaries, caused some confusion. Now, it's important to state here that because Jasper National Park is Parks Canada, it does create a bit of a different response. But the town of Jasper itself, even though it's within the national park, does follow under provincial purview. And normally, in that case, it would be the province that has the first jurisdictional response, the first jurisdictional priority. But because it was a national park, the first response comes between a joint command spearheaded by the government of Canada through Parks Canada and the municipality of Jasper, and the province then helps. So it seems that throughout the process, the province was asking for information requests and all that kind of stuff. and trying to take the lead in the response as it would for any other fire in the province. But the lead was not with them. In this particular case, they were supposed to support. And Danielle Smith apparently, for some reason, would not accept that, which created some delays. Now, the report does go on to state that once these jurisdictional issues were cleared up, that everybody did work very well together and that things did proceed smoothly. So it's not, nobody can assume necessarily ill will or not wanting to work with the federal government, but it just seems that there were probably some times that she was told, listen, you just don't have the lead here. And she kept on trying to have the lead there, demanding information, that type of stuff that she would need if they were the lead rather than just following, and thus causing people to have to re-explain things and re-explain things and re-explain things, which took people's attention away from the crisis at hand. Now, this report here says the response to the Jasper wildfire complex demonstrated the effectiveness of the strong unified command established by the municipality of Jasper and Parks Canada. Provincial involvement added complexity to the response as the province of Alberta, though not jurisdictionally responsible to lead the incident, regularly requested information and sought exercise decision-making authority. So this is what Nate read himself here. But it further goes on to say, the Alberta Emergency Management Agency plays a crucial role in fostering preparedness and operational efficiency for responders during large-scale incidents. A key area of influence of the province is ensuring responders are equipped with strong incident command systems, knowledge, and positional-based skills. However, findings from the workshop and surveys indicated gaps in role clarity and use of standardized procedures contributed to some fragmented authority, duplication of efforts, and inconsistent application of incident command system protocols. Feedback from participants highlighted both the value and challenges of implementing incident command systems knowledge in multi-agency emergency responses. While incident command systems provides a structured approach to incident management, variations in understanding, inconsistent application across agencies, and unclear role definitions led to coordination challenges, decision-making inefficiencies, and tactical delays. Consistent ongoing training on incident command system is key to building and maintaining capacity and capability across the province to help supporting agencies effectively support emergencies in other jurisdictions. The AEMA, or the Alberta Emergency Management Agency, holds a critical role in resource management and tracking as it mobilizes resources on behalf of municipalities during large incidents. Despite this, challenges were identified, including inefficiencies in signing in, tracking, and checking out resources. These issues resulted in a lack of awareness regarding resource availability and location, which contributed to confusion, increased safety risks, and hindered effective allocation of resources. Improved resource management processes are essential for enhancing the province's capacity to support municipalities in such emergencies. Future incident management should reflect pre-established clarity in roles, jurisdictions, and authorities that are housed within the MEP, and that in Alberta is the Maintenance Enforcement Program. I had to look that up. Reports have lots of acronyms from time to time to avoid further complications. Developing formal agreements and communication protocols between the municipality of Jasper, Parks Canada, and key provincial agencies in advance can help define leadership responsibilities and decision-making processes more effectively. This will ensure that invited agencies, such as Alberta Wildfire, can contribute operational expertise while maintaining the integrity and authorities of the unified command structure. Further, the municipality of Jasper should advocate for the Alberta Emergency Management Agency to enhance responder readiness through expanded training initiatives that emphasize incident command system proficiency and positional-based skills. This advocacy can further extend to seeking improved processes for resource tracking and management, particularly during the early stages of an incident, which are vital to ensuring situational awareness and the safe, efficient allocation of resources. By promoting collaborative alignment, clear jurisdictional boundaries, and common incident and resource management approaches, all partners will be better positioned to work cohesively and optimize their emergency response efforts. And then in the recommendation section, it says, the sixth recommendation, clarify provincial expectations and jurisdictional concerns. Working from existing legislation and authorities, meet with Parks Canada and appropriate Government of Canada and Province of Alberta representatives to discuss and resolve challenges identified during the wildfire, clarifying pertinent provincial and federal agency jurisdictions and responsibilities within the MEP, or the Maintenance Enforcement Program. And there was a second recommendation here. Advocate for resource optimization and expanded standardized training. Advocate to the AEMA, the Alberta Emergency Management Agency. It's hard to remember them. For 1, review of Provincial Emergency Coordination Center resource allocation processes to enhance dependability and reliability. Implementation of a resource deployment and pre-alerting system to support more rapid response, and a robust resource tracking system that allows for real-time updates on the availability and location of resources, and bolstering education and awareness of incident command system and positional training across all responding organizations to enhance interoperability and consistency during incidents. Those are literally the words that were in the report. Do those sound stridently accusatory to you, or just matter of fact? It was observed that through all these consultations with all these people, incident manager, responders, first responders on the ground, all their individual feedback, hundreds of people, and then a whole one-day workshop at which the province was present. They heard all of this there. The report comes out, and as Nate Pike says, she puts herself at the center of it, even though it's one little small detail in an entire big report. Yes, and all in super inoffensive, plain, matter of fact, we observed, here's how we can improve something. Language, no accusations. There was a gap here. There was a jurisdictional issue here. In the future, like this, let's have some meetings now to resolve those. So when there's another fire, this discussion about jurisdictional authority, jurisdictional responsibility doesn't happen again. So that time could be used on preparing the response rather than briefing you. That's it. But apparently she couldn't handle that. She flipped and decided to make this all about her. Once again, the words "I want" or "I demand" coming out of her mouth, an apology that this be this report be redone, this section be revoked, that anything in there that says that there's anything that we as a province could have done better needs to be removed because it's unfair. And I don't know what the people of Jasper are trying to do here. That is not the response. That is not the response at all. This woman is pure poison. This is poison. This is not helpful. That's a 6-year-old having a tantrum in front of a microphone and a camera because mommy decided that this week we're buying cornflakes and not Fruit Loops. It's childish, it's immature, it's unnecessary, it's unhelpful. It's a complete loss of mastery of self. It's not all about you, Danielle. And in every disaster, there's usually a report like this that's done so that we can learn and be more efficient the next time around. This response is illogical and irrational. And I'm hoping that the good people of Alberta, that this particular incident, because it is so wildly disproportionate to what was said in the report and so unnecessary and just so peevish. I hope some people, even though they like her, can turn around and say, you know what, that uh, that's not it. We expect better from our premier from that. Even if we support her, even if we think that she's on our rah-rah side, that's not it. We're talking about wildfires here. Talking about wildfires. To get that upset at one little passage in an independent report that says that there was this one thing that the province could have done better, and then to demand apologies and retractions and making statements such as, other jurisdictions should be focusing on what they could have done rather than pointing the finger. And I'm thinking, girl, have you seen yourself? Have you heard yourself talk at any time over the last 3 years? Because that's all you do is point fingers at other people and tell them what they need to do better to make your life as premier better or Alberta's life better without ever looking at what it is you bring to the damn potluck. She literally had the gall to say that other people should be looking inward rather than pointing blame. Okay. Kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We have so much more content for you today. We could have done a whole other 2-hour show. Um, Wow. Kits and Cubs, if you do not want to miss an episode because you are on the go and busy, busy, busy making things happen in your community or just making things happen in your family or even in your own life, pursuing your own dreams, and you don't have time to necessarily listen to us every morning live with the DAMFAM or on video, sometimes you need to take us with you. Well, don't worry. We are portable thanks to the Ray Girl. If you just scan that QR code, that will bring you to our pod page, podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you click on subscribe, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you, right to your favorite podcast feed. And if you're listening to us on podcast and can give us some stars and reviews, hey, that helps us a lot. Thank you. If you'd like to help us in other ways, well then, Kits and Cubs, you need to make like Kits Elaine and Kits Cassie and surf on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page where we have our buttons like, share, and subscribe. Please give them a little tickle. It gets us so happy and it helps us with the algorithm as well. And we thank you for all your help in doing that. And if you would like to help us in other ways, Kits and Cubs, then an enthusiastic expression of encouragement by way of our coffee page is always very appreciated. A contribution to the Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund. Because a moist beaver is always a happy beaver, it does us a world of good. We've received a couple of contributions this month, and we would like to thank you individually. And hopefully, we'll do that at a time where I only have, when I have a little more than a couple of minutes to close the show. But I have not forgotten you, and you will be getting a shout out. We have 3 people to thank so far this month. So we will be doing that on a later show. I keep on putting a note of it, but not able to manage the time yet in the show to get it done, but you have not been forgotten, and we do thank you for your support. It means the world to us. Now, if you're buying Canadian, hey, we can help you there too, because a direct bank-to-bank transfer is great because you get to avoid the USC Tech Pros, and we get 100% of your donation. And you can do that by sending us something at truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. That's the same address you can use if you want to write to us to let us know what you think about the show, if you have some guest suggestions, and we have a great guest coming for you on Thursday. By the way, just a little tease here, but it was a conversation that was good for the soul for us when we did it, and we felt very good after it. So we hope that you will enjoy it too, and that will be on Thursday. But if you have some guest suggestions, all that kind of good stuff, then Kits and Cubs, please write to us at truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. We love to hear from you. And if you want to reach us via our socials, at True Eager at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge on the Shitter, True North Eager Beaver on Facebook, our original home, or right here on our YouTube page, either live with the DAMFAM or at your own convenience, send us a little note there. We read everything that you have to say, even though we're not able to answer to you. We can't answer everyone, but we do absolutely read everything, and everything that you send us, either in terms of a contribution to the Emergency Hydration Fund or as a comment, goes back into the show in order to make it better. And Kits and Cubs, we also now have a Substack available called Beaver Bites. If you look for it, where we are now writing some written editorials to go along with our show. So hopefully you are enjoying that as well. Please take some time to check that out. I think we have about 3 of them written at the moment, and with more to come. So there you go. Because democracy is something that you do, Kits and Cubs, please, if you have the opportunity, go to mypcalberta.ca and sign the petition there in order to register the Progressive Conservative Party of Alberta along with Elections Alberta, so that you do have more options when the time comes for the next federal election. And also remember that there is that petition. If you go to our Commons petition number, I believe, oh darn it, yes, E-6488, in order to be able to create the position of a Disability Commissioner of Canada. That petition closes tomorrow. So if you are planning to sign that, please do today. Do not delay. All right. Words of wisdom, Kits and Cubs. I don't really have much for you, so I'm just going to revert to one that I like. Don't let anybody dim your sparkle. We need it. So shine on, Kits and Cubs. Shine on. All right, Kits and Cubs. It could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And now, at the count of 3, if I can have a little audience participation. And Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock. On 1, 2, 3. Oh, yes. So melodious. How can I resist? You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community. And The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, Kits and Cubs, before we go, just a little bit of news of Canadians who make us proud. Denis Shapovalov, tennis player, who had been in a slump for the year, kind of emerged from it, beating Alexander Kovacevic 6-4, 6-2 to win the Maifel Tennis Open, his 4th career singles title and 2nd of this year. He dominated all week, not dropping a single set, and that brings him back into the world's top 30, which will be in time for the US Open to have a good seed there, which is very important. Also, congratulations to Felix Auger-Aliassime and Bianca Andreescu, who represented Canada at the Hopman Cup. It was a tournament of 6 nations, 1 man, 1 woman. They play a singles match each and then a mixed doubles, and they defeated Italy in the final for the first time ever, Canada winning the Hopman Cup. All right, kids.